Welcome to today's opinion show. I'm Elizabeth Sullivan. I direct the editorial board for the Plain Dealer and the Northeast Ohio Media Group. And today we're going to be talking about the state budget with members of the editorial board. I'm joined by editorial writer Sharon Broussard, Diadiun, Chris Evans, and Pete Krouse. The Ohio Senate just introduced its version of the budget this week. They plan to vote next week, so it's very tight. At that point, the House and Senate, and there are some significant differences between the two versions, as well as the version that the governor had requested, have to resolve their differences, and then the governor has to decide whether there are any elements in the budget that he wants to line item veto before he signs it into law. And we need the budget approved by the end of the month because the new fiscal year begins July 1st for the next 2 years. So that's what we're talking about $130 billion, give or take a few pennies. And that's the approximate amount of what the Senate is proposing. It's a package of some tax cuts, but much less than what the governor wants, and did not include the severance tax that he requested, but has replaced a lot more of the cigarette taxes that he asked for. It does cut what the House offered to schools, but is still ahead of where the governor wants to be. It gives judges a big raise over the next 4 years, all the judges in Ohio, and there are some other elements. So we're going to be talking about it. Let's see. I'm going to start with you, Chris, because you've been nodding your head vigorously.
Yeah.
Does that mean
what about those
agree?
Cavs? I'm just kidding.
Was there a basketball game last night?
There was a basketball game last night. No, the thing, what struck me was, again, the severance tax on the fracking, is not where it should be. I think, these people that are doing the fracking and taking these resources, these limited resources out of the ground, they need to pay more. So I'm with Kasich on that. The other thing it's better. They talk about police training, increasing police training, and there was a study done that wanted to get it up to 40 hours a year, and this bill, the Senate bill, gets it up to 20 by, I think, 2017. And I really think that should be a focus, given what's happened over the last 6 or 7 months. If we're going to increase training for police, we should increase it and not in incremental amounts. And I'm also against that would allow people who have concealed carry permits to remain completely confidential.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that one briefly, because that emerged in the details of the budget that we saw yesterday. It would, in fact, prevent journalists who now have the right to review those records, though without the ability to take notes on them, to even see those records. And I think it was outrageous initially to prevent the public from access to what are public records, essentially, all the concealed carry holder permits in the state. It prevents if this goes into law, it would prevent the journalists or the public from knowing whether various felons or accused gunmen had concealed carry permits. And it's a typical of what happens in a must-pass bill like the budget, where you have stuff in there that's not strictly budget related and really under Ohio law shouldn't be in the budget, but there it is.
Yeah.
I don't know, do you have a different perspective?
Well, I don't believe felons can get a concealed carry license.
No, I meant if somebody who commits a felony.
And I do think it's a matter of privacy. When the law first was enacted, we, for several months, probably a year and a half or so, printed everybody who got the name of everybody who got a concealed carry permit in our 7-county area of coverage. I always thought I never liked that. I thought it was just a shot across the bow, and you know, really it just invaded.
But why? Why, Ted?
But
I mean,
it was
This is
done.
nobody's
It was
business.
done because of essentially to protest the decision
Oh, I know it was,
to
yeah.
exclude this information from public view.
Well, it was an effort, but I have a concealed carry permit. I don't care who knows it, but I think it's my business really, and it's up to me to disclose it or not to disclose
But isn't it a public record because it's a public?
Well,
it's the state that issues it.
I think it's an invasion of my.
but how does it? I just don't understand how it violates your privacy. I mean, you don't want people to know that you have a concealed carry.
I've just said that I do, but I mean, if I didn't, you know, there are people who might not. You know, my neighbor might not want his name in the paper, or might not to have that open to anybody who wants to look at it, and it's his business. You know, might not want people to know he has a gun. You know, there
But
were all
but
kinds
to
of
me, it's similar to court records. I mean, there are people who are going through divorce or some other situation that they may not want people
Child
to know about
custody.
it, and you know that's a public record. You can search and find the name, and I don't see why concealed carry should be any different.
And I think it's important to note that after that first year and that essentially protest that the paper mounted of the decision to keep this from public view, we have not published the names and addresses of concealed carry permit holders since then, nor do I anticipate that we would ever do that because it's you know, what's the point of that? So.
Well, that was part of my objection too, but I mean, it's still there, it's still searchable, I presume. I don't know whether those records were on cleveland.com then or not, but I assume that you can go find it if you want to, and I don't know, I think there are a lot of things that people do in private that should remain their own business, and that's one of them. So.
One of the other things that I think was notable about the Senate budget, and probably about every budget that Ohio passes, is the clout that special interests seem to have. So the oil and gas industry,
gun industry.
One of the things that jumped out at me is that fireworks provision is back in
Yes.
Ohio Senate. And you know, this major fireworks maker in Ohio has been pushing to get rid of the liar's law,
The liar's
essentially,
law, yeah.
which, you know, Chris Evans wrote a good column about his experience with
It's
with
a lot
that.
of fun coming up with the names of places you're taking the fireworks to.
But on the other hand, is this the best way to determine policy? And this is yet another provision that's not budget related. So what's it doing in the
Right.
budget?
Yeah.
No, I agree. I think there's things in there like the fracking. I would argue the concealed carry permit that should be standalone bills. That there should be a public discussion, and it shouldn't just be larded into, like you say, a must-pass bill.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about the fracking, your comment about that, because doesn't raising the taxes on that in Ohio just raise the price for oil and gas for everyone? Doesn't it just pass? I mean, the company just doesn't dig deep out of their
Well,
profits
I
and
mean,
pay it,
that's up to the company. They have to remain competitive. I'm just
Right.
saying that these are limited resources, and we're letting these companies come in here and extract them, and we're getting nominal amounts of money for it.
Much
Yeah.
less than other
Ohio-
states.
Other states, yeah.
Ohio
Yeah.
severance tax is woefully low. It's pennies. We're talking about making it dimes instead of pennies. It's not going to affect
Right.
But isn't it sort of an anti-fracking because the other drilling remains the same? That's not raised.
It's not, because proceeds of the severance tax are used not to go into the budget, or at least not till now. The governor would like to use the fracking tax to underwrite his 23% income tax cut, but but in fact it should and has always gone to the Ohio Department of Natural Resources to support their licensing, oversight, permitting
Right.
responsibilities,
Inspections,
and they
yeah.
need more money to do that because they don't have sufficient with the
Exactly.
increased activity in the state. So, I mean, there's a real reason to do this, and I think actually the oil and gas industry recognizes that there's a need for this tax at some level.
Yeah,
I'd
they've
rather
been on
have-
board with it, but, they've always quibbled about how much it should be, but not that it.
I'd rather have them raise money by upping the cigarette tax to $1 a pack from the 60 that the Senate 60 cents that the Senate proposed.
Now, that would really be a regressive tax, though, if you did that.
Yeah, but
And
on the
that would-
on the
Fine
other
with me,
hand,
yeah.
there are so many great benefits when you increase the taxes in terms of
Yeah.
getting young people, not
No.
to
Well,
start
and
or
this
to
and this
quit.
money would be used to work with
Some of the money, apparently not
stop
as much
smoking
as
programs.
usual, not as much as the anti-tobacco people
No,
want,
actually not very much at all. according
yeah,
to-
was it like 8 million or
8
something
million.
like that?
So where does the money go? Well,
Most
this
of
would
it
help with
go
the tax
to-
cut.
It would help with the tax
Okay,
cut,
yeah,
yeah.
sure.
That's always
And that's
the
good.
goal. But I wanted to say on the police training thing that I read in the dispatch that part of that money would come from the local.
Right, community, yeah, the government funds,
The
yes.
government fund, and once again, it's under assault, and, you know, I could see cities saying, yes, we want better trained officers, but on the other hand, you know, once again, our state monies are being gutted.
You're
for
absolutely right,
things,
Sharon.
and
Yeah,
that to me doesn't
That's
seem
exactly
right.
where it's gonna
So-
come from, and so, yeah.
And
that's
that,
not
you
good,
know, I
think.
think is one of the issues with the tax cut. We've had double-digit percentage income tax cuts in recent years, you know, and this is, even though this is a political issue, we have a governor who wants to run for president, he wants to say, hey, I cut taxes again. Is that really the smartest thing to do? He wants 23%. I think that both the House and Senate are at 6.5%.
Right.
But that 6.5%, that's still more than $1.2 billion out of state revenue, and that has to, then that penalizes whoever that money is going to in the budget. Because the
And
budget
the
has to
majority goes
balance.
to schools, I think, is what we've been told, right?
And
To
the
education.
Senate budget cut $65 million that the House budget provided for schools, and also imposed a tuition freeze on
Right, universities.
the publicly supported universities, even though it also increased, you know, the spending on higher education, which in a way,
Could balance that out.
yeah, balances
But, you know,
that out.
Kasich had, I thought, a better idea, which was he was once again going to let the college presidents get together and then decide how to do that. And that has worked well with their infrastructure plans, and it's worked well with, you know, their budget and things like that. So I would like to see that done as opposed to just
Right.
across the board, states telling you what to do.
And there would be a chance maybe to change those provisions in the conference committee.
Yes,
Because I
there's
think
always
that
a chance to change everything in the
widespread
conference committee.
support for that. When Keith Faber, who's the Senate president, came in to talk to us, he made it pretty clear that he has a jaundiced view of higher education spending in the state and wants to see it controlled. Pete, you've been strangely quiet over there. What do you think about?
Well, about the budget,
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
you mentioned Faber, and I think Rosenberger in the House is
Right.
similar, right? I mean, doesn't he sees higher education spending in a different way, and
Yeah.
more towards maybe emphasis on vocational and things like that. And I think that does have some value. The one thing you mentioned at the beginning was about the raises, the judicial raises,
Right.
and you know. I think it's a good idea. I mean, I looked at those numbers, and if the numbers that Chief Justice O'Connor provided us are accurate, I think all the judges in the state do deserve a raise. I mean, I think we're 35th or 45th out of the country, and I think we have like 6% of the workload. I mean, these are elected officials. I don't necessarily think we're going to get better candidates by raising their salaries, but I do think, in sense of fairness, I think we'll have happier judges, and I think that will help.
Yeah, well,
Do we want happier
It's
judges?
Maybe
it's
not.
actually a
Yeah.
fairly sizable, it's 20% over 4 years.
Yeah,
Fairly sizable increase.
Right, and that may be too much,
what
but
we
we-
called for
they do need something.
editorially
was for
is,
appeals.
was
Yeah, the
to-
appellate
to
court.
give an interim raise to the appellate court and then have a study
Right,
commission kind of look not just at judges, but also at the pay of all elected,
But I think
statewide elected
But I think we,
and
I think,
county
I think we
officials.
could have. I think we should have also supported though the common pleas increases too. I mean, I agree that it's good to look at all government employees, but that's going to be a big process. That's going to be a 2 or 3 or 4 year thing. And I think the judges, you know, they've gone 7 years now, I think, without any kind of a raise. And
Yeah, but you know, my feeling
deserve
is that
something.
a lot of people have gone 7 years without a raise, and these are elected offices. They choose to run for them, and they know what the salaries are when they're running.
And they're,
So-
they're public servants. I don't think any common pleas judges are starving to death. They're
Right,
still paid,
yeah, they're-
paid quite handsomely.
They drive nice cars, but I think with the appellate court, I mean I mean they're reviewing. I mean that seems like it's a much more intense.
It's a more arduous job, but as
right.
Pete said, is it really going to attract smarter judges?
Is it a more
I don't
arduous
know.
job? I submit that where the rubber meets the road is with the common pleas judges. I mean, they're the ones that
Objection.
they hold the trials. You know, they
They approve the plea deals?
They approve the, yeah, whether they're, you know, but, I mean, I'm not trying to discount what the appellate judges do, but, you know, they kind of set their own agendas to a certain extent.
I just meant, I think you have to have a wider range of judicial expertise, you know, to be an appellate, an effective.
Good.
You would think, but you know what? There was an appellate judge who was elected, I think, in Summit County, who had, I think, 1 year on the municipal court.
Yeah, depends
Oh, yeah.
on who
And
you're
now,
running
and
against.
and I
I'm
think
not saying they do.
she's a smart lady,
You know, this
but
is-
you know,
Yeah,
there's-
in terms
The
of
pay
qualifications, you
raise
wonder.
is separate from a whole package of reforms that the Chief Justice
Yes.
has
Right.
been
Exactly.
promoting
Right.
to increase the quality of judicial candidates and to increase the quality of the justice that they hand out. But at any rate, unfortunately, we are out of time. There's way too much to plumb, I suppose, for a 15-minute show in the budget. But anyway, thank you very much for watching. We'll probably return to this subject editorially in other ways, and we'd like to hear your views about what we've discussed today as well. Thanks for tuning in.
Go Cavs.